About 60,000 of Ukrainians and about 74,000 of Afghans who are right now in the United States are said to be able to benefit from temporary protected status recently announced by Department of Homeland Security. While applications for Ukrainians for TPS already can be submitted, applications for nationals of Afghanistan, those who wish to submit for TPS, are still on hold. Here I'm going to talk about the TPS, what it is, and we're going to go in depth as to what potential issues one may encounter when he or she is willing to file for TPS, what to watch out for, and how to resolve those issues. I'm also going to speak about prosecutorial discretion, which is a very hot topic considering that prosecutorial discretion memo is going to affect on April 25th, on the same day when new program for Ukrainians who are overseas is set to go into effect as well. And I'm going to tell you about that program too. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Alena Shautsova. I'm an immigration attorney from New York. And today we are going to discuss those interesting topics. And of course, we're discussing some interesting topics every week. And we also have live sessions almost every week. I'm trying to have them almost every week. So if you have not signed up for my channel, please do so. And share this video if you will like it, so we can stay connected together longer and you will be updated on the most interesting United States immigration law topics. Temporary protected status is a form of executive action, if you wish, that allows the government to quickly protect people who are in need of protection by allowing them to stay in the United States, work, and apply for a travel permit so they can also travel and come back safely to the United States while the protection covers them. Currently, there is a number of countries that are already designated for TPS. Some people in the United States are residing in this status for decades. For example, people from El Salvador. The most recent designation for TPS include Cameroon, Ukraine, Afghanistan. TPS will not lead to a green card. However, TPS seems more as a permanent option than temporary option, despite of its name. Because once the country is designated for TPS, to cancel that designation, significant change of conditions in that country must occur before DHS will stop designation or will decline to designate the country for TPS. Remember that initial designation is usually for 18 months, but then about 60 days prior to its expiration, the DHS secretary will have to re-evaluate the country conditions and extend or decline to extend the designation. I think that the newly designated countries will be able to enjoy TPS for another 10 years. I may be wrong, but we will see. As such, it's extremely important that you do not miss filing for the TPS. Even though I mentioned that about 60,000 of Ukrainians or 74,000 of Afghans will be able to benefit from TPS, it does not mean that there is a limit as to how many people may apply for TPS. Virtually anyone who qualifies may apply, and if they qualify, their application will be granted. So again, just for example, for Ukrainians, to qualify for TPS, you will have to show that you are a national of Ukraine and you have been residing in the United States since April 11th, 2022. You also will have to pass background checks to make sure that you do not have certain criminal convictions that would disqualify you. And remember that TPS is a discretion. The government may, if they find, for example, that you are not a person of good moral character, disqualify you from TPS. Interestingly enough, if you are a person of dual nationality, if you have two passports, and it's relevant for any TPS applicant, if you are Ukrainian or if you are from Afghanistan, It does not by itself preclude you from qualifying for TPS. However, you will have to show to the United States government to their satisfaction that you did not firmly resettle in that different country. You will have to submit, as a part of the application, a list of all the countries where you lived or traveled to on your way to the United States. And if you have lived somewhere else, if you have traveled and stayed there for some time in a different country than your country of origin, you will have to explain yourself and convince the United States government that you did not firmly resettle there. So it's extremely important. For example, you have a Russian and Ukrainian passport, but you resided in Ukraine, you consider yourself to be a national of Ukraine, and perhaps you received that passport that never actually used it, right? You have a good chance of still receiving TPS. Same goes for any other person who is filing for TPS, who somehow has a permanent residency in a different country or some sort of a passport from a different country. It's very important to know and be prepared to argue this point. If you are now in detention, immigration detention, initial jurisdiction over your TPS application will still be with USCIS, and only if you are denied TPS status on some of the mandatory grounds, then immigration judge will be able to review the denial. It's very important to know that. So denial may not mean that you will not be granted TPS forever. It means that perhaps you will have to file for it more, depending on the jurisdiction of your case in immigration court, or perhaps you will have to file an appeal. Extremely important. Remember that each family member has to qualify for TPS separately. It's extremely important to know that. There is no opportunity for a TPS applicant to convey the status to his or her family members. Sometimes a person is said to be inadmissible into the United States and cannot receive TPS status without a waiver. So you have a choice. You may submit that I-601 waiver together with your initial application, or USCIS is going to give you an opportunity to submit it later. It's up to you. If your TPS status is granted, you're going to receive I-94 record showing that your status was granted. Remember that TPS runs parallel with other status if you have it. For example, student status. Extremely important. By itself, grant of TPS does not affect your F1 or B1, B2 status. It's important to know that. Some people, they're worried that their student status will be cancelled because TPS, from its name, temporary protected status, gives them an alert that it may be taken away, which I totally understand. But this is important to know. How long will it take you to receive TPS? Well, about 6 months, probably a little bit longer. You will be able to receive a work permit as well. Usually, it comes right when your application is granted. And travel permit, you will be able to apply and receive as well. Interestingly enough, that in the case of a TPS, when you have an order of removal, receive TPS, and your advance parole travel permit is granted, you may travel in and out of the country using that. And that perhaps the only way when you can travel and come back without significant issues when you have an order of removal against you. Extremely important to know that. I hope that clarifies certain issues surrounding TPS. For some people, application for TPS will be relatively easy. For some people, it may be a little bit more difficult due to inadmissibility issues or due to the issue of dual nationalities. Perhaps there is something else in your record that you would like to address with an attorney. Extremely important to work with a lawyer if you have previous immigration history, orders of removal finding of marriage fraud, for example, in your record, or you had some sort of criminal convictions. TPS and removal proceedings. What happens if you are an applicant for asylum and you would like to file for TPS? Well, if your asylum is denied at the interview and you have TPS status, it will preclude asylum office, at least according to the present clarifications, from referring you to immigration court. You may want to be in immigration court sometimes if you feel that you have a very strong case. That's something to know about. Another thing, believe it or not, but grant of the TPS, if you are in removal proceedings, does not give a judge, immigration judge, a right to terminate your removal proceedings. Rather, the court has to administratively close your case. It means that you will still be, technically, in removal proceedings. And if and when TPS status is over, then you will face removal again. Extremely important to know that. Taking into consideration that the new prosecutorial discretion memo relevant for the prosecutors in immigration court is taking effect on April 25th, 2022, you may want to plan ahead for what is it that you're going to be doing with your case in removal proceedings. I receive many inquiries when people are asking me, what is it that I should do? Shall I ask the government to terminate my case or dismiss it? Shall I ask for something else? Well, it requires planning, understanding of the consequences of different requests or opportunities that prosecutors may exercise in your case. For example, as I stated many times before, if your case is dismissed or terminated, you will lose a pending employment authorization that is based on a pending relief like asylum. If your case is administratively closed, you will be able to keep that employment authorization, but at the same time, you still will be in removal proceedings. If you feel that your case is not strong for asylum, happens, right? But you're not quite ready leaving the United States, perhaps it's a good time to plan for a request to maybe administratively close your case if the government exercises their prosecutorial discretion for you. So planning and understanding of the consequences is extremely, extremely important. When filing for the prosecutorial discretion, you have to present a strong case. As a rule, you will start with your story as to why you're here, what is it that you wanted to accomplish in terms of getting your immigration status, and your family ties, your work ties, business ties, meaning what is it that you've been doing here? Do you have any family members? Have you built some close relationship with people in the United States? It's extremely important to show all that, or as we refer to it, to submit your life story. You also have to show that you've been paying taxes. You also have to show that perhaps you are a person of good moral character, and you have to present, I hope so, and you have to present self-background check, which is easy to obtain, guys, and very safe. You can obtain your self-background check using printscan.com website, okay? This is the website that helps you to locate your nearest provider for that service. It's a private company that is authorized to collect your fingerprints and send them on your behalf to the FBI. This is my understanding of how this system works. So all that has to be submitted with your prosecutorial discretion request. So the prosecutor will be able to evaluate your situation and hopefully render positive decision in your case. One more point. While judges do have discretion, even over prosecutorial objection, to grant your motion to administratively close your case or terminate your case, in my experience, have noticed that they usually will defer to the prosecution. So it's extremely important, again, to submit those requests and perhaps follow up on them. It will not take you 30 days sometimes. Some people say, oh, it's going to take me only 30 days. No, guys, it may take significantly longer than that to hear back from the prosecutor, okay? Sometimes it's several months. But again, what has to be done has to be done. And now let's talk about the recently announced program for Ukrainians, for those who are overseas. According to the White House, this administration, starting April 25th, will allow organizations and individuals to sponsor Ukrainians who are overseas for humanitarian parole while they're in their country. It's extremely important because so far people were able to obtain that humanitarian parole only when they were requesting it at the border of the United States, Canada, United States border, or most commonly Mexico and the United States border. And now the White House says to Ukrainians, do not travel to Mexico to do that. You're going to have an opportunity to be sponsored while you are overseas. Why do they do that? Well, because if someone is requesting humanitarian parole at the border, the CBP officers have to make a decision about admitting them or not, or paroling them or not, within a relatively short period of time. The announced program is going to take at least months because it implies that both the sponsor and person who is being sponsored are going to go through background checks. Will have to comply with vaccination requirements and financial requirements as well. The details of the program have not been published yet, so I will not be able to share with you any specifics as to what applications will have to be submitted, if there are any fees for it, and how exactly, if you would like to sponsor someone, you'll be able to find that person if you already do not know them. I'm not sure if that will be possible. I hope so, but I'm not sure. So this is what the plan is so far. Also, the White House stated that they're going to work with their European partners to make sure that the resettlement program, the refugee resettlement program, is working and operating fast. So it gives us a signal that the government of the United States would like to accept Ukrainians, but only those that they will be able to check to make sure that they do not have any issues in their background. Very interesting news. I do hope the program works. I also have to mention here that there is some criticism about the White House actions in this regard, because people do not understand as to why a program like this has been established relatively quickly, or at least announced for Ukraine, but some other countries have not been so lucky. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you have your thoughts on the topic, please comment, and we're going to discuss them during our live sessions that I'm planning on doing shortly. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, like, share, sign up for my channel, and I hope to see you soon.